From whatever reason, there are no source sheets. Okay, I'll talk about something else. Why not? Yeah. Rabbis are never really out of words, right? So, okay, you know what? Let's talk about the following. It's good to talk about it because Yom HaShoah is Wednesday night, Thursday, and I will talk first about the following. Yom HaShoah is this week. Yeah. Thursday, Wednesday night, Thursday. So one of the things that we see is that there are interesting questions in the time of the Shoah. There's really a book. It's called Mima Amakim, when they have questions and answers from the Shoah. So I'll from whatever I remember from years before, I'll try to present you a few, and then we'll talk not only about the halachic aspect of every question, but also about the time it was asked. And what do I mean by that? So, first and foremost, let's start with a simple question. Rabbi, can I purchase, whatever it is, IDs to show that I'm not Jewish?
Can I purchase again?
An ID that I'm not Jewish. Okay? Some Jews who didn't look, quote unquote, Jewish, they asked the rabbi, can they buy what? IDs, passports, whatever it is, and to basically pretend fake papers, right? Now, the question was not about faking the papers. The question was about faking your identity, which means at times of persecution, can you try to hide your Jewishness? Now, I'm not talking about people who gave their kids to the church, I'm talking about people in the ghetto. That was the question that they asked. Look, we can get out of here somehow by faking our identity, and to go free, and we don't look Jewish. So, if that was in a quote unquote a normal time, not a Shoah. So then, obviously, what is the question here? Halachically, what's the question?
Can I deny my heritage?
If it was not the Shoah, just today I go to the rabbi and says, Rabbi, I would like to also have another passport. So I'm going to fake my identity and I'm going to put a little bit of a different picture, but is that allowed? So I will speak about what? Look, you cannot fake papers. You are lying to the government. You are lying at the airport. It's not nice. It's not right. It's not legal. It's not halachic, right? I will not talk about his identity as a Jew. He or she are not talking to me about, changing their identity and to live like that. They just want to have another passport. Here, the question is what? It's very different. The question here is to save yourself by not admitting to your identity and to your race. Yes? Oh, so here is the question. Very good. So is that a Yihareg v'bal yavor? Now, so let's start from the beginning about Yihareg v'bal yavor, and then we'll talk about the different conditions and the different times. Very good. So, what do you think? We all know that there are 3 mitzvot that you must give your life for, right? Avodah zarah, gilui arayot, shfichut damim. Now, wait. So the question is now, do you think all the mitzvot were at the same category and those 3 later on just remained? Or none of the mitzvot was in that category and these 3 were made up? Is my question clear? Which means we have 613 mitzvot, let's say, okay? So what was before the rabbis came along in Yoma and said that those 3 mitzvot you must give up your life for? What was the discussion? Was all the mitzvot under this category that you need to give your life and not to violate it, and then the rabbi says, no, it's too much, let's just skip it to 3? Or none of them was under that category, and the rabbi says, you know what? There are 3 mitzvot that are very important and you need to give your life for. Yes?
Doesn't the Gemara also say, however, if the person that's...
Yeah, we're not there yet. I know what the Gemara says, but we're not there yet. I'm asking the Hava Amina of the Gemara. When the Gemara says that there are 3 mitzvot that you need to give up your life for and not to violate them, my question to you is, what was before? Was every mitzvah under this category that you must die and not violate, or none of them was? And the rabbis just decided, you know what, those 3, we're going to pick them. Marcy.
Were they a manner of being proactive, or did they have somebody, I mean, were the rabbis being proactive in terms of saying, here are the 613 and just taking it from the sky, or there was the reason?
Okay, so now you're asking another question. And the second question is, why dafka these 3? We're not there yet. And now I overheard, my nafkamina. What do you think? We are pretty close. So, that's the question. My nafkamina. Yeah, so my nafkamina. So I'll tell you what's the nafkamina. The nafkamina is the first thought that I should have, which means, really there is no difference between avodah zarah, gilui arayot, shfichut damim, anachat tefillin, achilat kasher, putting mezuzah, Shabbat, and putting ma'akeh. They all came from God, right? That's our faith. So therefore, there should not be any distinction between any of the mitzvot. And if God commanded you A, and someone else comes with a gun and tells you to do B, there is no option here. I need to do what God told me for every mitzvah. When you start playing with mitzvot, people will do what? Pick and choose. If you tell me that those 3 I need to die, that's what I'm going to do. The rest of them not that important. Which means the first thought can be that all the commandments were under this category that you need to what? To die and not to violate. And why? Because they all were given mero'eh echad. They all were given from God. So there is no distinction.
How does it follow that there is no distinction because they were given by God? I don't see how that could follow.
If everything was given by God, how can you make distinction between the
Because
mitzvot?
it could be that God meant that some of the mitzvot
How do you know?
should be. We don't, but we don't know the other either. In other words,
So what will make more sense? If the king says to you, you need to do A to Z, and if someone else tells you to do something else, what should you do? What the king says, right? From A to Z. That's the simple understanding. Yes.
You know there's a hierarchy of mitzvot. We have different punishments for different mitzvot.
Mm-hmm.
So some are more severe punishments, some are...
But that's the same thing, somebody categorize them into different categories.
No, so that's in the Torah itself, right? That's in. Okay. So let me ask you a question. If it's what?
Is the answer Kasur the Beit HaMikdash?
Not necessarily. Not necessarily. Shabbat. What about Shabbat?
No.
Mm-hmm. That's what the rabbi says in one of their interpretations.
One of them.
Yeah, one of the and they picked it because they picked that those 3 you should die and not violate. There is a chicken and an egg there. Yeah. Okay. So the question here was, Rega, the Torah itself in a way specified that, for some of them you get a more severe punishment. But it does not mean anything about what? The violation of it in order to save your life. It might be that there are some kind of hierarchy between mitzvot, but it doesn't mean that you can still violate it in order to save your life. Which means there is a gap between the suggested punishment to the violation of it because of a threat to your life. Okay, one more. So now we have an issue with the first question. I didn't forget the second question, I didn't forget the third question, I didn't forget the fourth question. Okay, so let's start with the first question. So what was before? Now, why am I saying what was before? My nafkamina, why do I care? Because if you tell me that at the beginning, all the mitzvot were under this category, that you need to die and not to violate, and then the rabbi said, you know what? We can't do that. It's too much. Which means we understand the reality, and there are going to be only 3 mitzvot that we're going to pick from all those 613 and say, for them, you must die and not violate it. And why? Because I can go one by one, but let's just say it in general way. Those 3 mitzvot basically gives you the DNA of your Judaism and your connection to God. Avodah zarah, we all understand. Shfichut damim, you're going to decide who is going to live and who is going to die. This is like acting like God. and Gilui Arayot, you are basically taking God's koach to you, and you decide, how to bring life to this world against God. Now we can find common denominator. We can find that each one of them has a different thing, but most of them, bemet avodah zarah, Gilui Arayot, and shfichut damim, became part of Jewish identity. Okay. So that's one way to look at it. Then there is a second way to look at it and say, no, none of the mitzvot were under this category, meaning God had nowhere in his mind that a person must die and not violate his commandment. And why? Because it says, v'chai b'hem, v'lo shemut b'hem. God wants us to be alive. What's the point of, if, let's just imagine that there is someone who puts a gun to every Jew, everywhere, put a gun to him and says, okay, if you don't do this, you're going to die. God forbid, what will happen to the Jewish people, right? So it makes no sense. So the rabbis came along and says, look, even though you don't need to give up your life, there are 3 mitzvot that you need to. And why? Avodah zarah, it's what makes you a Jew. You believe in God, in one God, and not in an idol. And the same thing with Gilui Arayot and Shfichut. Now, later on, the Gemara, or not later on, it was almost the same time, let's say, the rabbis came up and said that was only in quote-unquote normal time. Aval bishat hagzeira, in the time that there is religious persecutions, then afilu arakta de mesana, even the way you tie your shoes, you need to give up your life. Jews have a way to tie their shoes. So one is the color of the shoelace. What is the shoelace? That's A. And B, also the way we do it. We put the right first, the left first, tie the left, tie the right. Okay. But even arakta de mesana, which is like nowhere in the Torah. So now that's exactly what the Gemara says, basically, that even something that's not in the Torah, it's not even the Rabbanan, it's a minhag, you give up your life for. Ma pitom. So we understand that at gzeira, a time of decree, of religious persecution, this is a different time that requires different requirements, basically, halachic requirements. Because religious persecutions, they are not against your body. They're not going to kill you. They don't care about killing you. It's not Haman. It's more of the Yevanim. They didn't want to kill us. They wanted to kill our Torah. And therefore, when they are after the Torah, so then everything under this category, including what? Minhagim, it will be in Shat Gzera, and you need to give up your life even for what? For how you tie your shoes. Now, this is an interesting thing. Because the Gemara was able to do what? The Gemara was able to distinguish between what they call persecution of the bodies, which means they wanted to kill you. They didn't care if you're religious or not. They wanted to kill you. Or religious persecution, which means they don't care that you are alive. They just don't want you to what? To be religious. Okay.
A Jew or religious?
No, a Jew. A religious Jew.
Well, the third
They want
one,
to kill Jews.
But don't forget, we're talking about the time that there are no streams of Judaism too much. I mean,
Just Jews in
yeah, there are Hellenistic Jews, so you can call it another stream. Okay. So now we established that what? There is what we call a regular time when you give up your life for a mitzvah, and then you have Shat Gzeira. Okay. Now let's do a little bit of Jewish history. At the time of Yemei HaBeinaim, the Crusaders, okay, so the first Crusader was 1096, and then later on we had through the centuries. Basically, if I will ask you to try to define what was the goal of Crusades, of the Crusaders, was what? To capture Jerusalem. But what did they do to the Jews on the way? They killed them. Why did they kill them? Now, most of the times they asked them to convert. They put a siege on the city and on the Jewish village, whatever it is. And interestingly enough, the Jews will run to the church to be protected, and then they will be killed. Okay, most of the times. But the thing is that they asked them to what? To violate their religion, to basically to convert to Christianity. And then we have testimonies that Jews, obviously, some of them did, by the way. Some of them didn't, and also they killed themselves in order not to fall into the hands of the Christians, whatever it is. But basically, I will define crusades as what? As a religious persecution, right? They wanted you to convert to Christianity. Good. It's not good, but that's what it was. When you come to the Shoah, so if I now a rabbi in the time of the Shoah, those are the texts that I have, right? I have 3 mitzvot that you need to give up your life and not to violate. However, in the time of Gzeirah, of a religious persecution, you give up your life even for what? For the way you tie your shoes. In the time of the Crusades, when I have some shelot v'tshuvot, I have questions about what should I do when the Christians come to the town, right? And there it was pretty easy. Pretty easy. I mean, pretty easy to answer. You cannot convert into Christianity, okay? And therefore, options. Okay, I'll take a few minutes about it. The option that is the most reasonable one is you tell them, I'm not, and then they kill you. The thing is that many Jews didn't do that. They killed themselves before the Christians came. When they saw that the Christians are coming to town, and they knew exactly what will happen, they killed themselves, and they even killed their children. We have testimonies from Rabbi Shimon ben something from the 12th century who testifies about it. And then,
Isn't that totally asur?
your family. Therefore, the 12th century, the 13th century rabbis, and until the 16th century, there was a discussion if what they did was correct or not. Some said, sure, it was correct, because you can't take the risk that your kids will be Christians. It's better for them to die. Later on, the Maharam Rothenburg, already in the 13th century in Germany, already questioned it. And he says, what's going on here? Like, since when we are allowed to do that? And the Maharshal in the 16th century says that they did something that was prohibited. It's very interesting. But that's what they did.
Is that after or during the Inquisition that he said that? I mean, was that?
Oh, the Maharshal is 16th century in Poland.
Oh, 16, okay.
Yeah. But Rabbeinu Tam, Maharam Rothenburg, and others basically questioned what they did. They didn't want to argue with them because that's what they called Hasidei Ashkenaz, the pious people of Ashkenaz. And so we don't touch them. They are pious and they are righteous, but halachically, we have a problem with it, with what they did. Because what does it mean, Yaharek v'bal yavor? Let them kill you. You don't need to actively kill yourself. Meaning, when someone comes to you with a gun and says, okay, violate Shabbat, and if not, I'm killing you, you don't take the gun and shoot yourself. Okay? You let him do it if he wants to. So,
he may not kill you after all. I mean,
well, right, that's also true. Nahon, you don't need to actively work for it. Yeah, don't do his job. Let him do his job. I mean, if he wants to do his job.
Wasn't the supposition based on the fact that the people felt that they would not be able to withstand the torture and they would become Christian, and therefore they rather than that outcome coming about, that's why they killed themselves.
But then you need to bring a proof that you are allowed to kill yourself because you are afraid of torture. And the only proof that you have is Shaul and Shimshon. And Shaul might be unique because he was a king and he was afraid of the humiliation of Am Yisrael. And the Talmud talks about it. The Rishonim are talking about it, that exact issue. Are you allowed to kill yourself knowing that you're going to be tortured? Because don't forget, there is a interesting modern outcome that can come out for it, which is if someone suffers and is afraid of a medicine or a treatment or whatever, can he pull the plug? Okay, yeah, we can come up with many things, but let's go back to the Shoah, right? It's a very interesting topic. So, you're with me? Everyone's with me? No one? I didn't lose anyone on the way? Okay, good. So, the thing is that now if you are the posek in the Shoah, leave alone that you don't have books and everything, but let's say you remember everything by heart and you remember all the stories and everything, and you know that in the time of the Crusades, okay, so there was those 3 options, right? And people did whatever they did, but it was a religious persecution. When you come to the Shoah, and this is something very interesting because you know what? Now I'm digressing. When you look at the Shoah, you have a few ways to think about it. You can look at that as another pogrom, like what we had all Jewish history. Or you can say, no, that was not a pogrom. That was a massive massacre that was planned. Scale, quantity, and race. That's why Shoah is very different than any other pogrom. And it's not only because of how many millions of Jews were killed, but because it was planned with a government and a country. So the idea is all the other crusaders, okay, many of them just join in. Why not? Spoiled, they were Christians, they were whatever. Here you have a country with an army planned, even when they see that they are losing. We came from Germany, I don't know, a few weeks ago. We went on a shul mission to Germany. There is a rail, what do you call it, a mesila, like a tracks, that it says that they deported Jews from Germany. They found 18 Jews, and they transported them to Auschwitz on, I think it was September of 1944, or beginning of 1945, when they know that they are losing. It's crazy. So it's systemic. It's something that was in the country, in the government, which is it's not normal. So if you are a posek now at the time of the Shoah, even if you don't have this historical perspective, because we are talking about now 2025, you're in 1940, someone comes to you, you are in a ghetto, and a Jew comes to you and says, "Can I fake those documents?" Halachickly, I'm not talking about yet, other things. I'm talking about halachickly. So how do you define the Shoah? Religious persecution or to eliminate the Jews? To eliminate the Jews or religious persecution? So, no, because Purim and Hanukkah. Purim again. The story of Purim, elimination of Jews. Hanukkah, elimination of Judaism. What's going on in Germany is that in a way there is both. It was not only religious persecution, because the Germans didn't tell you, okay, go convert to Christianity or convert to Nazism. This is not the issue. But they went after you, and they really love religious Jews, right? In order to mock them and to humiliate them. But they were against Jews as a race. So, and they wanted to basically kill and destroy every Jew. So you have, in a way, you have some kind of a combination of both. Of religious persecution, because definitely they closed the shuls, they didn't allow you to daven and things like that. And then at the same time, they wanted to kill you. So, now, that's the what?
Which they did so much.
Bavadai. Yeah. So now, let's pause here for just a second. When I say Kiddush Hashem, what do you have in mind?
That you die for your.
That you die for God, right? For at least for these 3 mitzvot, right? Okay, what else? That what?
Where you live.
Or you live. Very good. The Shoah, in a way, changed the perception and the understanding of Kiddush Hashem. Until the Shoah, Kiddush Hashem was what? To die for God. Lamut al Kiddush Hashem. In the Shoah, during the Shoah, a lot of the people who told their children, and you hear it in many of the testimonies, you're going to survive, you must live in order to tell the story. Which means the Kiddush Hashem will be what? To live, not to die. Now, who would like to be a posek at that time? You understand the gravity of the question? On one hand, you are telling that Jew, okay, you're going to what? To have those fake documents, you will become Christian, and I don't know what will happen to you religiously, spiritually. You're probably going to what? To immerse yourself in that society, and boom, gamarnu. Not sure that you're going to come back. But at the same time, I'm saving your life. And there is an option that you might keep your Jewishness somehow. So, if that's...
They only benefit. In other words, if they don't come back, then maybe they should have killed themselves.
What, Levanti?
Sometimes their children and their grandchildren come back.
In other words, if somebody's Jewish and they're forcing you to die, to convert, or they'll kill you, then if you know that you are not going to be
How do you
able to
know?
withstand it.
How do you know? How do you know? You don't. And that's why
People know themselves. They don't know somebody else.
don't know. That's the problem. That's the problem with in a way, look, there is a story in the Gemara in Gittin that talks about 200 or 400 boys and girls that were put on a boat at the time of the Romans, and both genders understood why they are being taken, okay, for sexual abuse. Okay, so the women came to the boys, the girls came to the boys, and they asked them, if we jump, are we going to have heaven? And one of the boys says, yes, sure. And they jumped. And then the boys realized, oops, look, like, no. They said, if the women jumped, we definitely need to also jump, okay? So that, first, can you learn halacha from Agadah? That's question number one. But even if you do learn some halacha from Agadah, the question is, the question that needs to be asked is, if you know that, or you assume that you are going to be treated in a way, and you don't want to be treated like that, okay, are you allowed to take your life in your own hands? And there is a dispute about it. So we are not that sure. So the thing is, if you are a posek in the Shoah, what I wanted to show you is that first, Kiddush Hashem is not the same anymore. A. B, and also, as a side note, in Medinat Israel now, what does it mean, Kiddush Hashem?
Going into the army, fighting.
Okay, going into the army fighting, dying for the country, right? Living for the country, living a life of ethical and moral society. Kiddush Hashem in a way, and this is, you can take it as a drasha for Yom HaAtzmaut. In Medinat Israel, Kiddush Hashem became the widest, most enriched phrase in Jewish history. Unlike ever before.
Why?
Because here, this is the birthplace of Am Israel, and here we can live and we can build our society. And if our society is ethical and moral, that's become a Kiddush Hashem for all the nations. When people protect our land, and even if, God forbid, they die on Kiddush Hashem, Ha'am ve'ha'aretz. Listen to the Kel Malei Rachamim. We don't say just Shemetu al Kiddush Hashem. We say Shemetu al Kiddush Hashem, Ha'am ve'ha'aretz. Everything becomes together. God, the land, and the nation. It's not only one thing. When a Jew dies in Poland, he dies for Kiddush Hashem. That's it, not the nation, not the land. Here in Medinat Israel, you have it all. And all the eyes are on the land of Israel. So, as a posek, at that time, it's very interesting, the psika was, I think one posek says that they are allowed to, in order to save their lives, and the other posek says no. Like every other question. But the idea was, that was the debate, which means, how do I define the Shoah, and especially when they didn't have all the information. At the beginning, many of them thought, what? It's another pogrom. Okay, we had it in the Jewish history, we're going to have it again, and then later on we'll be okay. That was not the issue, but we knew about it only later. So that was one example of for a question. Let me give you another example.
Excuse me. Who were the biggest Gedolim that had the argument against each other?
I don't remember. I don't have a social, so I'm trying to tell you things that I read 20 years ago, so I don't remember the name.
Right.
You have to go out and get jobs.
Shat Hashmad, yeah, you give your life for every mitzvah, but this is not a mitzvah to die. Okay, one more. I'll give you one more example. Okay. It was a known fact that you must wear a hat at the round call. What do they call it? When they call your name, and they had a roll call. You must have a hat.
Roll call in the camp.
You must have a hat.
In the camps.
I don't know how many of you went to Yad Vashem, but one of the testimonies, I don't know if you remember, I remember that as a child. One of the testimonies are, the mamash at the beginning, the guy, the one for Holocaust survivors, he told this story, and then he said, like, he was crying, he says, I took someone's hat, knowing that he will be shot because he does not have a hat. I lost my hat and I took someone else's hat. Now, he did not know if that person is alive or dead when he took his hat. He was on the little bench there, and he saw a hat, and he just took the hat. It might be that that person was already dead, or maybe he would not wake up in the morning. But the question is, what is the halachic question here?
Exposed them to
Let's say the cause of someone's death.
Matzil atzmecha b'mamon chavercha. That's a sugya in the Gemara, which means, can you save yourself with someone else's property? Okay? This is the question. Now, when we study it in a Beit Midrash, it's about theory. Yeah, it's a nice theory. It's a nice discussion to discuss it. Yes, no. Now it's come to real life. Can you basically save your life by risking someone else's life? We always ask the question, should you risk your life in order to what? To save someone else's life. Here the question was, can I save my life by risking someone else? So this is another example of a question in the Shoah that was very, very different. Okay. Okay, one more question, and I think I will conclude with that one. Okay. Did you see this movie, Woman in Gold? Yes. Okay. Very nice movie. That used to be, when movies had some content. So that movie had some content. For those who didn't watch it, or they don't want to admit that they watched it, so it's about a woman that had a paint that was stolen from her house, and if I'm not mistaken, the paintings, and then it was placed in a museum, I think in Austria, no, in Vienna, and she claimed it, and there was back and forth and a lot of anti-Semitism. At the end, she got it back. Shkoich. That was a good ending to the story. You can just imagine if they found one and if she was able to get it, you can understand how much stolen art we have. Okay, but that's not the issue. The halachic issue is the following. We know that you can take possession over things that were hefker. What is a hefker? That you let go. Yeah, you have no hope to get them, or you have no desires to get them, or you yourself expressed your understanding that you're not going to get it back, right? That's called yeush. Okay, when people lose something, so the Gemara in Baba Metzia talked a lot about yeush midat, yeush shalom midat, which means you lose hope, you lose ownership. You basically relinquish your ownership from that object. Now, okay, let me make it as complicated as I can. The Schwartz family, the Cohen family, Cohen is the most generic one, right? The Cohen family donated a crown to the Torah, to the shul in Warsaw. And after Kristallnacht, or while in Kristallnacht, when the shul was put on fire in Austria, or wherever it was, I, Moishele, went into the burning shul and rescued the crown. The Cohen family was there, and they stayed in their home. They didn't move. I, Moishele, ran into the shul and was able to save the crown. Not because I wanted to steal it, God forbid, just because I tried to save whatever I could. With the crown, I also saved some sidurim and chumashim that were given by the Levi family. I took them. By the way, the same night, the Levi family was massacred, was butchered, or killed. Okay? Complicated enough? Pretty good, right? After the Shoah, there was a Cohen survivor from this Mr. Cohen family. And he says to this little Moishele, thank you so much for saving this crown, but it's mine. It's my family. It gives me memory. It's my grandfather's. It says, Mr. Cohen. I'm not talking about what Moshe's reaction to it. My question, halachically,
Who does it belong to?
exactly. Is Moshe is the rightful owner, or really the rightful owner are the Kohanim? What is the question here? This is what we will call estimation of mindfulness. What do I mean by that? The Jews at that time, when they saw the synagogues are on fire, or when they were evacuated, quote unquote, forced evacuation from their homes, and they left everything there, did they have in mind that they are coming back to claim it?
Some of them may have thought so.
Or they understood immediately they are not coming back, and therefore, ma la'asot, it's not theirs anymore.
First.
Okay, now, before we answer this question, like any other halachic question, or most of halachic questions, you need to also understand the time and the circumstances. I would assume the Jews that were forcibly evacuated in 1939, little different than those who were evacuated in 1941 and 1942, because rumors start spreading. They start to understand that they are not putting on a train in order to have a nice field day, but that's going to be perhaps for some of them the last train ride, and for some of them they're going to go into torture and hard work and hardship. But the question, and also you can say that when you are in such a rush and they give you, half an hour to pack up your stuff and everything, you basically say, what?
Wherever I leave, I leave.
Whatever I leave, I leave. Now, I'm not talking about lifnim mishurat adin, beyond the letter of the law and how to be kind and gracious, and I'm talking about the din. So what is the status of property that was confiscated or stolen or taken or saved in the time of the Shoah, if the rightful owner, there are no dispute, by the way, that this Cohen is the rightful owner. I mean, Moshe does not dispute it. He just disputes the fact that what? That it's still yours. Because of what? Because of the conditions and the situation that it was found or was saved, because at that time there was Yeush.
Is it halachically true that it really would have belonged to Cohen anyway? They gave it as an adult. They gave it as an adult.
Don't focus on that detail. They gave it on a loan, okay? I solve your problem. Yes, okay.
But Moshe's not saving his life by taking it.
No saving
No,
life.
I mean, but the man with the hat, that's a totally different.
Oh, yeah, no, we moved from that. Yeah, that was too painful. This one was too, yeah. It almost brings me the memories from Yad Vashem. I don't want it.
What was the purpose of his saving it?
What was the purpose of his saving? Not to gain the crown, not to get ownership on the crown, just to save a holy object from being burned. That's it. He risked his life for that. That also might be another halachic question. Should he? But he did it. He couldn't see Jewish objects being religious. L'shem shamayim, mamash l'shem shamayim.
Well, they probably had Yeush, the family. The shul was burnt down, and everything in it. They knew that he saved it.
No.
They didn't know.
No, later on, they realized it.
Somebody found out.
Okay, now I'll give you another question. It's in along the same lines. Most of you came from America, right? Most of you are abroad. We all know the story. Jews built a community, then they become a little wealthier, and they move because of different things. Wealth, or the neighbors, or whatever it is. And they leave almost everything behind. Let's say there is a shul in a little city, and no more Jews. Zero. Now, the Torah, the bima, the chandelier, the rabbi's chair, the rabbi's study, the mezuzah, the bathroom, everything has the bathroom does not have a name of that. But that's the hardest thing to sell. No one wants his name on the bathroom, even though I think that's the most visited place, but whatever it is. So the idea is that you have a shul that now it's empty, no Jews in town, nothing, and there is the Torah that was donated by the Cohen family, and the chandelier that was donated by the Levi family. Yeah, the Cohen family all intermarried, and they are not there, and they care about the Torah like I care about the ballerina from Russia.
Somebody took it.
No, it's there. It's
Left in the shul.
left in the shul. There's no one there. Question. Can you take those stuff and give it to a different shul, an active shul? Or you need to get the consent from the family. Halachick. I'm not talking about being a mensch, even though it shouldn't contradict each other.
There's no more
They left it.
Shibitu for a year or whatever.
So on what
They left it.
they left it all, they are not even there.
They could have taken it. They didn't take it, they left it, they didn't expect to ever have it.
Okay, so it's not theirs anymore.
Or it's generations later, and you don't even know where the family is.
Okay, let's say that you know where the family is.
But contractually, when the family gave into the show, did they give it to be loaned it? And they said-
Loan it. That's what I told Dr. Kermeyer. Yeah.
So then it was a loan.
Michelle.
So then it's still both.
But it's not the same as the ground.
No.
Because in this case, they of their own free will basically walked away from it. So I would say if we're going by Hefker in this, that they basically relegated those things to Hefker. Whereas to me, with the Cohen's crown, just because they didn't go in and risk their life to pull it out themselves, they didn't.
Very good.
I don't believe that they.
Very good distinction.
did that to Hefker.
Michelle suggested, she says, well, Rega, add a little city with no Jews anymore, and they basically cognitively decided what? Well, let's speak, I don't care. The fact that I didn't jump into the fire to save my grandfather's crown means that I'm normal. That's it. I'm not jumping into a fire to try to save a crown. But I didn't lose hope. I didn't give up on that crown. So those are some of the questions that you had during the Shoah, and some others who are very, very tough questions. Basically, what we always try to do is difnim mishurat hadin. You ask them and whatever, but basically, this is a very difficult question halachically to determine yeush, because simple yeush is what? אני מתייאש מזה, אני זורק את זה לזבל. I throw it to the garbage. That's it. That's the simple thing. Oh, what we did on Pesach. הרי זה כאפרא דארא. Yeah, I don't consider it as nothing. The problem is when people don't express it, people don't basically say anything, and there is a condition. And this condition, it's also varies. Some people don't afraid of fire, and they jump into the fire to save whatever they can. And some people do care. Also, maybe Moishaleh was just the closest to the shul. And the Cohen's family, Bemet starts running to the shul to try to save it. When they got there, the crown is gone. So they thought the crown was burned or the crown was stolen. But they said, no, we are going to try to what? To find it. So you don't know because no one said anything.
The painting is another, I think it's different.
Sure. Why is it different?
She did not, she knew she had a painting that they took, and she actively went to find it.
That's wonderful. But at that time that it was taken from her, at that moment, and that's why it's so hard to determine, at that time, when she was in Auschwitz, okay, and every day she tried to what? To find a piece of bread. Did she said every morning after Moide Ani, woman in gold, you're going to be mine? So,
You don't know.
no, it's just like, was she mityaeshet from it or not? Meaning, people, when they were in the Shoah, this is, I know it's hard because it's emotionally so difficult, but you need to ask yourself halachically, what did they have in mind? Did they have in mind just let me survive this day? Or they had in mind, we're going to survive and we're going to go back to our homes, we're going to claim it, or we're going even to stay in Poland? So it depends. It depends so much on the person, and it depends so much on the situation and the conditions that they lived in. Okay, with that, I think I'm out of questions. And next time, Bezrat Hashem, I hope we will have associates. Yeah.
Thank you.